Why do we watch horror movies? Just to piss our pants? No. We watch them to live vicariously through them. To feel the fear they present as if we were the ones living it. We're experiencing these terrors in the comfort of our living rooms. The fear that some maniac killer is stalking our every move. The fear of a zombie uprising or alien apocalypse. We watch these movies to remind us of these feelings that make us human. But what happens when these things that we collect through our life, these valuables that we give little or no attention to, what happens when they come to life and try to end ours? Slaxx is about a pair of killer pants come to life from genetically modified cotton. So, right off the bat, opening scene, everything's explained. The premise itself is a bit goofy, so it's kind of interesting that it tries to ground itself with some sort of reasoning for everything that's about to happen. We know it's killer pants, we know that going into this. The story focuses around a girl who's got a job at a clothing company on the launch of their new pants, a pair of jeans that are supposed to form to whatever your body shape on their own, and the store has to do some sort of overnight prep to get ready for the launch. Nearly all of the characters in Slaxx are a cliche. The arrogant manager, the naive main character, and standoffish coworkers. Even this girl who pushes back against the presumption that as an Indian woman she would listen to Indian music, whose entire presence in the movie is to be anti-cliche. This girl who is later revealed to actually enjoy Indian music. A lot of the movie centers itself around fashion culture and ever-changing trends, and it's not really until the last half of the movie that we find out what it's really trying to say, where we find out how much it's trying to question the ethics of these companies. So the first 3 kills in this movie happen to A, a girl who steals the pants and puts them on, B, a girl who is hypnotized by the pants into putting them on, and C, this guy who didn't really do anything wrong but loses his arms anyways. Hey, so as I'm editing this, I kind of realized that he was also hypnotized and stole the pants, and he gets this weird, sexual look in his eyes, like he's gonna fuck the pants. So he didn't die for nothing. That's it. And it feels fairly senseless. It's just pants killing people. I mean, it's entirely what we showed up for, and that's fine. But after a few kills, the pants walk in on this girl who, like I said earlier, is listening to Indian music, and the pants start dancing. They pick up a mannequin and draw a bindi on their forehead. The main girl and her figure out a few beats after the audience does what's going on and play music over the speakers. They have somewhat of a conversation with the pants and learn that these pants aren't actually some genetic mutation come to life. They're possessed by the spirit of a little girl who fell into a processing machine, bringing to light the question of whether or not these companies who ethically source their materials, who fight against child labor, are truthful in how they operate. Which honestly isn't a bad question for a movie to ask. I don't hate it. Its biggest fault, I feel, is the way the pants behave. It makes a lot more sense for mutant genes to act like a homicidal killer, doing away with any reason and just killing for the sake of it. But when it turns out that the pants are possessed by the spirit of a little girl who lost her life, a little girl who, even though she's seeking revenge, was at the end of her life still a child. It shows how little care went into having these pants behave in a way that actually reflected that backstory, that reflected her story. There's a lot of managers bad, or corporations are evil, or YouTubers are vapid statements that the movie throws out. And while I agree with all of these things, it feels like the character's drive, like the heart of the story, is muddled up for the sake of the movie's kills. There's a story there that is tragic, a story that is grounded in real issues, a story that's much more human than we ever get to see. Killer Sofa is about a killer sofa. Again, right away in the opening scenes, we have all the explanation we need. There's some sort of spiritual ceremony going on with this guy, and I expected it to be along the lines of Chucky, where an evil dude's spirit is transferred into an object. But no, he's actually sewn into the sofa. The end. Okay, so there's a bit more going on here, but it's kind of a mess. You have this main girl, and every time she starts seeing someone, the dudes just become so totally obsessed with her. But her new boyfriend now doesn't, because he's in the closet. And the movie reminds us of this over and over.
You know he's gay, right?
But anyways, every other guy becomes obsessed. Even Ralph, the best friend's cousin, who sneaks into her apartment and fucks her bra and hat and then gets murdered by the sofa. But it turns out that there's actually a curse on her, that she was related to someone who practiced witchcraft, and that girl and her boyfriend died, and now their spirits need a host body, and also there's a Dybbuk, or the guy is the Dybbuk, I don't know. And her friend's dad knows all of this and tries to help because he has the gift and sees visions. So this movie is not good. Not just because it's about a sofa that kills people, but it feels like the writers just couldn't decide on where to go with it. Every time the story starts to kind of make sense, something else is introduced. Like it could have just been a sofa that kills people. Or it could have just been an evil spirit that could have been an ex-lover or someone from 100 years ago who practiced witchcraft. But when it's all of those things, it's a bit straining. And when all of those things need to be explained to you on screen, it just sucks. There definitely was a lot of room for it to get into more serious topics like domestic violence or obsession and the dangers it brings. But it just kind of sits in this space where it wants to be a silly movie about a killer object, but simultaneously takes itself too seriously to have any real fun with it. And the cops in this movie too, holy shit. You have this final moment where it's revealed that there's a fucking corpse in her sofa, and the cops shoot it. Then the main girl runs to the bathroom, and one of the cops knocks on the door, asking her if she's okay. In the end, the evil spirits end up transferring themselves into the main girl and one of the police officers, and that's it. This movie stinks, man. I really wanted this to be a fun one, but it just dragged on, and aside from a few laughs just around the sofa turning its head in a funny way or looking goofy, it really wasn't a lot of fun otherwise. Alright, Rubber. This has been one of my favorite movies for years and almost the entire reason I wanted to make this video. I think the idea of some random thing coming to life has a lot of room to be an entertaining story, especially when the thing that comes to life is humanized in a real way. In Slaxx, there were glimpses of this, with Killer Sofa as well. Like, we almost had that, but they never really succeeded. With Rubber, on the other hand, within the first few moments of the tire coming to life, it has this tremendous amount of personality. It wobbles around and bumps into things, and it learns. It does have this lack of motivation, kind of just blowing things up when it starts running into animals, even getting revenge on the first human that runs him off the road. But all of this is shown to us without much explanation. In fact, the only explanation that we're given at the start of the movie is that things are going to happen for no reason. We're given this absurdist thesis that asks us, is there inherent reason for anything? Or do things just kind of happen? With the other two movies, we had some sort of explanation right away, but with Rubber, we're given the opposite. We're told that all of what you are going to watch, all that you are experiencing in your life, happens without reason. And this movie is an ode to that. So the main story is about a tire that comes to life for no reason. It goes around and learns and falls in love and grows angry and violent, and there's just enough for there to be a story. But there's also this entire second story that's going on the whole time. The story about the movie, about the audience watching the movie. An audience that grows bored almost right away, who grow hungry, who are fed and poisoned, all so that the movie itself can stop and all the actors can go home, but one person doesn't eat the food and isn't poisoned and keeps watching. So it has to go on. It's jarring, and a lot of it might seem like it is nonsense, like it's happening for no reason, but this subplot is about the movie experience. It's about how modern audiences are so used to a certain type of story, a certain type of movie, that if they're not fed that story, if they're left waiting, staring at a screen that's too quiet for a little too long, they'll go hungry. The idea that by sitting still, by having a story about things happening for no reason, that audience will lose interest. But maybe, just maybe, there's some small percentage of people who care enough, who are fine with slow and meandering stories, full of dialogue and still shots, that will sit and watch. There's a line right away that I've always loved, because watching this movie with anyone, it's always kind of lined up with real life. It sits on this audience who are watching the movie, the same one we are watching, and it just sits there for a while, not doing anything. And this kid says,
It's already boring.
And almost every single time I've watched this with someone at or just before the kid says it, they do. This movie knows better than you do how you are going to react to it. This is a movie that isn't asking, would you please feel a certain way? It doesn't ask, would you please think of this tire or this pair of pants or this recliner as human? It knows that by showing you its humanity, that it learns and loves in the same way that all of us do, that you will see it that way. I'm a big fan of Quentin Dupieux or Monsieur Oiseau for his movies and his music. I think in either case, the idea of absurdity and the question of what will an audience or a listener sit through is some sort of game he's always playing. At the end of Rubber, the tire gets shot and transfers his consciousness into a little tricycle. He brings these other tires to life, and together they make their way to Hollywood. And I think in some way this is Dupieux's story. This is the story of a filmmaker who will create seemingly nonsensical stories and compositions and will remain unwilling to compromise his artistic integrity. And along the way will bring to life other creatives, other absurdists who will make things for the sake of pushing the boundaries, who will test the mainstream audience's idea of what makes a movie or a song a piece of art. I think there are times where things can be explained, where a backstory needs to exist, but there are times when it doesn't. I think with Slaxx and Killer Sofa, I would have much rather them just be movies about sentient pieces of clothing and furniture that come to life and kill people. And once you start adding spirit possessions and dibooks and witchcraft, the humanity of the story gets compromised. You can only have a side character figure out and monologue to the audience exactly what is happening so many times before, as a viewer, you feel infantilized and cheated. Like these movies think you wouldn't get it otherwise. And that's kind of manifested itself in writing the script for this. The two movies that had the more convoluted and fleshed out backstories, I had much less to talk about. I could only write about what actually happened in these movies and not much else. Whereas the one movie where things just happened for no reason, I had more to say about the ideas it presented, about how it made me feel and what it made me think. In some way, there are enough movies that explain themselves, and we could use more where things just happen. We don't need to be told what makes someone or something human. It's something an audience can feel. We don't need a convoluted backstory and lore shoved down our throats. We need humanity. And sometimes you can find that in the things that are the least human.